No qualifications not necessary. You just chant. And the chanting itself will purify you. The holy name himself will purify you. And this is the easiest way. Other processes of devotional service are not so easy. They require some qualifications, some special circumstances. So chanting is the best way, but any of the 9 processes will also work. This is confirmed by Bilvamangala Thakur. If one develops unalloyed devotion to the Lord, liberation will follow the devotee as his maidservant. Srila Rupa Goswami says that the regulative principles of devotional service are sometimes described by authorities as the path of serving the Lord in opulence. So let's look at these 2 ideas. First, Bilvamangala Thakur. You know the story? Bilvamangala Thakur was addicted to a prostitute named Chintamani. And one day, it was the rainy season, and it was storming and raining. If you've ever been in India, the monsoon season, the rain just pours down out of the sky. And certainly in the olden days, it must have poured even harder than it does today. So Bilvamangala went, he was determined to see Chintamani. He was so determined that even though it was raining and storming in the middle of the night, and dark and lightning flashing and freezing cold, he somehow he climbed over the wall. The doors were all barred and shut because it was such a nasty night. Nobody was going to come, so they barred the doors. And he couldn't get in, so he climbed up over the wall, and he slipped and fell, and he hurt himself really bad. He was in such miserable condition, you know, that they had to carry him into the house. And Chintamani was looking at this guy and going, "Boy, if you loved Lord Krishna half as much as you love me, you'd be such a great devotee." You know, she was like thinking he was kind of pathetic, you know, because look at you, you're so attached to me. I'm just a prostitute. What if you had some attachment to Lord Krishna? You'd be such a great devotee. Why don't you try that, you know? Whew. It won't be so hard on you. So something clicked in him. And he realized, wow, she's right. You know? And from that day on, he became a very, very great devotee. And he decided to give up everything and go to Vrindavan. So he was traveling as a renunciant. And he stopped at the house of a Brahmana to beg. And the Brahmana took him in and had his wife prepare some foodstuffs and like that. And Bilvamangala Thakur was very attracted to this Brahmana's wife. And so, but he was disgusted with himself. So he said, "Mataji, let me borrow your hairpin." Huh?
I think I know what happened.
Oh yeah, he put out his eyes. Put out his eyes. Okay. And so after that, he was blind, and he traveled. And he went to Vrindavan, and he composed, and he used to sing the most wonderful songs to Krishna. Krishna loved these songs so much that he would personally come and listen to them. And that's how great a devotee Bilvamangala became. So just see, anyone who really, truly sacrifices everything for Krishna, they can please Krishna, and Krishna will personally come himself. This is my experience also. Krishna will actually come if you please him by full engagement. And then the other idea is that if one develops unalloyed devotion to the Lord, what does unalloyed mean?
Pure.
Pure, right. If you mix 2 different metals together, it's called an alloy. Huh? But if one is pure, just one metal, no other ingredients, that's unalloyed. Pure devotional service. No mixture of anything else. Yoga, jnana, karma, or whatever. Huh? Then Krishna is very pleased by that. If you can do that, Liberation will follow the devotee as his maidservant. Well, what does that mean? A maidservant is someone who's not considered very important. In Vedic society, maidservants were more or less like slaves. I mean, they were totally kept and maintained, and they weren't allowed any independence. They couldn't go outside the master's house. They were just, not considered very important. Usually they were uneducated and like that. If liberation becomes the devotee's maidservant, this means the devotee doesn't consider liberation very important. Liberation is just something that's around, it's more or less taken for granted. The devotee takes liberation for granted. The impersonalists make a big deal out of liberation. Like, liberation is everything. Liberation is the goal of spiritual life. Whereas for a devotee, liberation is just the beginning of spiritual life. To attain liberation, I mean, this is like nothing. This is like ordinary, every day. It's not very important. Not very significant. If the devotee has to serve the Lord in the material world, well, that's okay. If he can serve in the spiritual world, well, that's nice, but it's not a big deal. Either way, it's okay. The devotee's not attached. He doesn't lament if he has to take another birth in the material world. And he doesn't especially rejoice if he has to go to the spiritual world. It's just all part of his service. The main thing is his relationship with the Lord. That's the focus. That's always the focus. The Lord, the Lord's pleasure, the Lord's happiness, the Lord's service, the Lord's pleasure. That's the happiness. That's the real happiness. If Krishna is satisfied, we're automatically satisfied. Whether we're in the material world, the spiritual world, in heaven, in hell, in this body, in that body, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That's the meaning of unconditional love. We don't say, Krishna, I'll love you if you give me liberation. No, we love Krishna just because of who he is. Doesn't matter. If he wants to give us liberation, that's okay. That's all right. But it's not as important as our service to him. Our service is the main thing. Our service is, in this analogy, would be the master of the house. The master of the house, the king or the father, the grandfather, the head person in the house. And liberation is just like a maidservant. Not very important. Not much status. No big deal. But liberation has to do whatever the master says. You see? So if because of our service we have to go to the spiritual world, then liberation will engage herself in our service and say, okay, here you go. You see? But in any case, to the devotee, it's not a big deal. Srila Rupa Goswami says, the regulative principles of devotional service are sometimes described by authorities as the path of serving the Lord in opulence. Opulence means that we have a lot of facility. Right now we have nice opulence. We have a nice house, really cool temple room, nice equipment, good internet connection, so much facility. It's very nice. That's opulence. If you go to India, you'll see beautiful marble temples, like palaces, beautifully decorated, paintings, and the deities are so beautifully dressed, nice jewelry and everything. Opulence. That's the mood of Aishwarya or opulence. But that is the mood of Dwarka. Dwarka Lila and Matra Lila are pastimes of the Lord in opulence. And all what to speak of Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha is very, very opulent. Everything is grand on a huge scale. But Braja Lila, the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, they're not in opulent mood. They're in a very plain, very simple mood. But the relationship of the devotees with the Lord is on a much more intimate level. You see, this opulence actually can become an obstacle to the intimate worship of the Lord. You know, just like a great king, you know, like the President of the United States or somebody like that. Wherever he goes, he has to have a big escort. You know, they have all these Secret Service guys check the area. He can't go anywhere just spontaneously. You know, it always has to be checked out and security verified and blah, blah, blah. So it's a big deal. It's an encumbrance, actually. He doesn't have any personal freedom. He can't just go anywhere he likes. So similarly, any great king or political leader has to have, you know, a guard and a cabinet and escorts